Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar. It's that time again, Chris. It's finale time, and it's not we've not had a good track record of enjoying finales of Korra. I don't think we liked either of the finales we've covered so far. So I guess the audience are sort of like they're sat there. They've got their special spreadsheet that we sent out to all of our listeners, and if you haven't got yours, then we don't like you. That has a little smiley face or a sad face sticker to go in every little episode, so you can keep track of which ones we liked and which ones we didn't. And they're sat there with both sets of stickers right now, wondering which one do we put on Venom of the Red Lotus. How you feeling, Chris?
Yeah, you know what, Dan? I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was. I'll be honest with you, mate. Let's steamroll our way into controversy right away. I thought some of the fight sequences were on a level with the finale of Avatar, like in terms of epicness and ambition. I liked it. What about you, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, this is easily the best Korra finale, and maybe one of the best Avatar finales. Like of the sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 finales we've had now. This is definitely up there. It's one of them. It's of all the Avatar finales, it's certainly one of them. It would be a thing I would say if I didn't enjoy it. So apologies that I phrased it that way. No, but it is definitely one of the better ones for sure. I really liked it. I thought this was a really great way to wrap up the season. I thought it made a ton of sense. I think they've done such a good job this season of sort of like letting the stories flow into each other in a way that felt very natural, so that like we're not sitting here having this finale having felt really forced and like it concluded a bunch of stuff that it didn't need to. They left a bunch of stuff open sort of deliberately. They left Korra in a really interesting place as a character. I thought the action scenes were great. Just like in terms of overall thoughts, I think the only thing about this episode that I think someone could aim at it as a criticism, and this is something I think Nadia felt while we were watching the episode, was it was a little less on the sort of yucks, the good time adventure stuff. It was quite a heavy episode. I think it lent more heavy than recent episodes had. That had found more of a balance. I think that's fine for a finale, but I think somebody could aim that as a criticism at it. If they were coming to Korra for the yucks. We got a couple of yucks, but it's not laugh a minute, is it? Particularly the ending.
No,
the ending, which is basically heartbreaking.
And I would argue even one of the laughs is just it doesn't fit tonally, which is when the comedic brother puts the sock in him and is like, "See, I literally put a sock in it." I was like, "Read the room. It's not the time. It's not the time for jokes."
You know what? I didn't mind that. So much. I thought that was better. Certainly better than other occasions we've criticised Bull. Or the other one or two times we've come across Bullen being funny in an inappropriate moment. It's only happened once or twice, but like this is certainly on the lighter end of that scale. Like there have been worse for sure. But yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed it overall. We didn't really recap the plot, did we? For those who don't remember, this is the one where we reveal the Red Lotus's plan is to end the Avatar cycle by poisoning Korra to force the Avatar state to come out. And as was established, I think, back in the original Avatar series, if the Avatar dies while in the Avatar state, it ends the Avatar cycle. Hence why using the Avatar state sparingly is probably a no-no, and why one of the other reasons that it didn't seem right when she was just using it to cheat at racing last year. Imagine if she'd had an accident during the race while in the Avatar state. Brutal. The Avatar went out fighting a bad guy. No, it was hubris. But yeah, it was quite a brutal plan to reveal. But everyone sort of turns up at that same sort of mountainside, and there's a big old battle. We get Korra versus Zahir, and then we get Mako and Bolin versus Mei Hua and Gazan. No, Minghua. I'm mixing her up with the other one, Mei something or Mai something. The other character, the one that passed away last 2 weeks ago. whatever it was. Yeah, so then all the characters basically win their fights. Korra, with the help of the Air Nation, who are now interested in protecting, like they're like, we're going to stand up for ourselves this time. We're not going to get, we're not going to get obliterated like the last one by sitting peacefully by. We're going to get involved, and they all gather together and help Korra win the day. And then Metal Bending ends up saving her completely from the poison, but the downside being that she is now struggling to recover and in a wheelchair and looking pretty defeated, if I'm being honest. Looking pretty down, which is really sad and hard to see. And then, of course, we contrast that with the uplifting moment of Jinora ascending to the role of Airbending Master. She has her tattoos, and Tenzin reveals the new aim of the Air Nation. Very different to the original. They're going to become nomadic, and they're going to wander, helping restore balance to repay the Avatar for her sacrifice for their continued existence. And I think that's a really beautiful moment. It again stung with the poignance of like Korra's situation. Like really powerful stuff. What a great ending. And leaves us with a lot of room to run, for the subsequent season. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. That's the plot. We usually do the plot sooner, but I did that. That's the plot. That's what happens. So, where do you want to pick up, Chris? What do you want to pull up first as a thing to break down?
Let's talk about. I mean, it's a strange place to start right at the end, but let's talk about the fact that the villain lives. I suppose he's imprisoned, but I think he's too good. Surely he's going to be the villain for. You know what? When he flew out and Korra chased him, I knew we were going to get them fighting then, but I was like, he's getting away. Like he's going to get away and be the villain for Series 4 as well, and I was fine with it. Like I was absolutely cool with that. I was like, yeah, I'm down with that. Obviously, but I don't know if you can say at this point, did you think surely they're going to use it? He's too good, man. He's too connected to airbending, and I want him back. I don't want him to. I really want him to come back. What were your thoughts? Did you want him to come back?
Yeah, similar. I think I was expecting different things, I suppose. But yeah, I anticipated we would see him again because they're very. I mean, look, we'll come back to the ambiguity of the ends of Minghua and Kazan because I think very much implied both of those have passed, but I don't think directly shown. They jetted it. They both got jetted, where it was a bit vague on purpose. You could, dead or unconscious, hard to say. But then, of course, the whole thing collapses in on itself. So then you got to think, well, even Minghua, who might have been quote unquote unconscious, might be dead. So with Zahir being the only one left alive, I remember being disappointed we didn't see a repeat because this episode had so many visuals it borrowed from Aang's fight with the Fire Lord. I really thought when Zahir got trapped in the rock, the same way the Fire Lord got trapped in the rock in the original Avatar finale, I really thought we were going to see Korra take his airbending away. I was surprised we didn't see that. And I've got to assume, quite frankly, just too weak, right?
I mean, especially based on the then ending of the show. I mean,
right.
Just brutal to Korra, wasn't it?
Yeah. So my assumption is maybe I wondered. I remember wondering at the time, like, is that something that would happen off screen at a later time? Would they say that for the next season? Would he be pulling the strings from a prison, the subsequent year? Would the Red Lotus continue to be a threat? They very much hint the Red Lotus might still be a threat. There's a line when they're talking about who will protect the world now, and one of the things they talk about is obviously the obvious chaos in the Earth Kingdom, but then the other thing they mention that I think is really interesting and telling of where the writers might be thinking about, or at least I certainly thought so at the time, they mention but they don't know how deep the Red Lotus ran. They don't know how many members there were. There could be a lot more Red Lotus people out there. That's all I'm saying. And the show kind of hints at that. So even if Zahir is in prison, is captured, the organization might continue.
Yeah, and it's certainly, I mean, surely the interesting thing you do there is have a member that's someone we know, and I still think maybe that random it was waterbender, wasn't it, or metalbender?
Metalbender
that they introduced last week in a she's
Kuvira.
gonna be important. I still think maybe her. I don't know for sure. But I think the Red Lotus. I mean, this is, it's very in Korra's from Korra's point of view. In terms of Korra's character, it's very Empire Strikes Back. I mean, we do not leave her in a good place, physically or mentally. Like, it's really I think that's what's so harrowing about that last scene. They really play on how it's affected her mentally. I think she, yes, obviously physically she's weak, but it's the fact that she's just not able to smile. She's not able to even enjoy this event, which we know she would enjoy, and obviously she's emotional about it. But oh god, harrowing. That the fact that he's still alive, the fact that we've got this kind of are there any more Red Lotus members thing going on. I think this absolutely concludes this is the perfect finale in the sense that, or a perfect finale in the sense of, well, it's not perfect because the tone is a little all over the place in bits, but in the sense that it rounds off this season's story in a very good, complete way, and yet also sets up Series 4 brilliantly. Yeah,
and I think the real thing that was joyous here was that the pacing was sensible and it worked, and everything about it, they focused in on the thing they wanted to actually for the episode to be about. Because I think one of the issues we'd had with previous seasons was they just bit off more than they could chew across the season, and then stuffed in solutions to everything, needlessly. So choosing to just focus on this direct conflict with the Red Lotus, and actually the very simple goal of the Red Lotus, I think one thing that would... it's hard to know for sure how I felt watching it originally, but I think one thing I absolutely could have felt and sort of sensed that I might have rewatching it this time was that, the Red Lotus's plot, we didn't really know exactly what they wanted with Korra until this last episode. And there was a real danger of them sort of botching it in the last minute like they did with the previous season, where the final story introduces a new idea that's too complex to really be done justice, and it ends up just sort of falling a bit flat. I think we got lucky here that they were smart enough to... Not lucky. I think they were smart enough after the experience of the previous two seasons to go, well, actually, it can just be something simple. They just want Korra dead. She also represents the power struggle. The Avatar has maintained order in this world, has maintained these world leaders, these structures. So this chaos we want, this anarchy we want, this, and I think this episode did the best job, by the way, of actually making him, I think, his politics less muddy, because it was just so clearly, he's just so clearly wrong now. I think when they made it the Earth Queen's bad. Well, yeah, the Earth Queen was bad. He's right, But then he was talking here about every man for himself and total anarchy and chaos in a way that he hadn't talked about before. But I think that focus on his plan is actually that the Avatar has supported those governmental structures, and he gave her chance earlier in the season to be with him. When she chose not to, then her fate was sealed from his perspective. He was going to end the Avatar cycle. If the Avatar wasn't going to join him to do what he perceives as returning balance to the world, then he's going to end her. And I'm so glad it was something like that, because it's as simple as that sounds, as the villain wants to kill the hero. Anything more complicated, because we hadn't revealed it up until this point, would have bogged this episode down so much. When you think about how much spirity bullshit happened in the end of the final season, instead of just focusing on the conflict of saving the world. Korra had to find herself under a tree, and then Jinora floated down and gave her more Avatar-y power so she could Avatar harder. And it was all this shit that they never properly explained. It just felt rushed, and it felt crammed in, and it was just awful, like really bad. To just go, hey, he wants to kill her, is so simple and so effective, and means that the episode really has the room to breathe and tell that story well and be dramatic. Her fight with him, where she's clearly fighting the Venom and isn't on full form, but he's also made that horrible mistake of letting her get into the Avatar state, which is clearly juiced her up, which is something we've previously established as juiced her up. We haven't done, Jinora didn't float down and give her more powers like last time. We know exactly why she's juiced up, and it's just this epic fight, but for very understandable and clear stakes, and I preferred that. And that was a very long rant. I am sorry, but yeah, it's a strong thing about this finale.
You're absolutely right to prefer that. I mean, it's better. I love that, and she. I mean, I know we've seen it, but I mean, it felt like we were watching the Hulk. This time, she was really mad. That really juiced her up. They really went for that, didn't they? Oh, sorry, I hit my mic then. Apologies if that made noise. They really went for that, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where Korra has always been like a physically quite imposing Avatar. It's clear she trained from a very young age. She's always been very sort of muscular and imposing as a figure. I felt they've always drawn her that way from day one, but to use the detail in this episode in the art, and it's fair to now say where the budget for this season went. We talked about episodes that had cut scenes and action beats and stuff, and wondered, where's the money going? Here, this episode looked fantastic. Like this episode looked as good as the original finale. I think the stakes aren't the same, obviously. But the choreography, there's this one shot that's like a continuous shot as they're both bouncing off the mountains, and he's obviously flying and Korra is launching herself off rock after rock, and they kept that really consistent as well, because I think one criticism, if this was handled badly, is it could almost have looked like Korra was flying throughout this episode, but they always made you understand where her center of gravity was and what she'd thrust herself off to be in the air. It was such an epic. I can't remember. How do we get? I got so distracted by the visuals. I actually forgot what the point I was making was.
About her being so strong in the Avatar.
Oh, right, yeah. So they really lent into the emotional state of this for her. She's been pushed around so much, and they were able to draw her. They were able to draw her physically more imposing than ever, more details in the lines, the shots when she's getting the venom put on her and you see her face and it's gaunt and there's all these extra lines, and it's horrifying to look at. And the way they drew the Avatar state flickering in and out, and you combine that with her natural rage, and then that sort of that quiet rage Aang had when he was in the Avatar state, but with Korra's more imposing sort of physical stature, just really makes for almost a scary Avatar. They lent into that this week, and it worked brilliantly. She felt wrathful, and that's what's really interesting. I'd like to get your thoughts. Moving on to if we're on Korra, that choice at the end, because we talked a lot about this season about the humbling of Korra, and that a lot of this show has been. Whether well designed or not, her arc has been, I'm the Avatar, deal with it, to I'm willing to just let there not be an Avatar to save the Air Nation. And that's been a fascinating arc to watch Korra go on. A shift in maturity, so to speak. She seems broken at the end of this episode. She sat there having this. I mean, this is almost the final test for this character, in my opinion. This is a character that went from the Avatar is the most important thing, and I'm that, to other people are now taking up the role of protector of the world's balance, because she physically can't do it anymore, and she has to sit there and clap and smile while that happens. And for a character that's been on that journey how she will handle that. And I assume, poorly to start with, then better, as character arcs tend to go. But how she will handle that will be presumably a thrust for her for next season. And what a fascinating position to put her in. But I was curious to how you felt watching it for the first time and not having already seen, season 4. Because I've got to imagine that some of my thoughts on this are informed by the fact that I've seen what's coming next. I don't think I've spoiled anything in what I've said there, but it definitely, I put more weight on certain things because I'm remembering them being an element, But yeah, how did it land for you?
Yeah, I don't, because she's so inward. I'll be completely honest. Like, I was wondering whether there was more to it, whether something happened. If she hadn't already lost her connection with all the past avatars, I'd almost be going,
right,
has she lost her connection? You know what I mean? Looking for the thing that made her feel so tipped over the edge. Like, I was curious about that. I think what's so powerful and so clever, and it's really like, I'm a big one for not shitting on Series 2 to praise Series 3, but just when you compare the writing, like, they have... Tenzin's daughter's name is, remind me?
Jinora.
They have Jinora... When Tenzin is sort of, on his knees and beaten and in despair, Jinora is the one that goes, no, we've got more airbenders than we ever have before. We can do this. And she and there's no what shall we do? She steps forward and she starts creating that whirlpool of air to drag them down, and then the others follow her lead. And then she's the one that is therefore, is elevated to Air Master, which is just fantastic. Master's the right phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Airbending Master.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's the one that gets elevated to Airbending Master, and Korra, the cleverness of, like, let's have her do that, and then it's logical that she be Airbending Master, and then what also makes the ending even more so brutal is Korra is pleased for her. Korra, it's not, she's proud and she's happy, and it's not as simple as I feel weak. Like, there's so much mixed emotion, and all of that comes through. Like, I genuinely believe that. Like, and but again, they have it with the writing. Asami, hashtag justice for Asami. They've given us something to do again. It's very good. Including the zapping.
She zapped a guy.
Yeah, zapping the guy with that lightning. That was great. With that electric shock. Sorry, that was brilliant. She says you gotta go for her, and Korra goes, yeah, That's the thing that turns her around, and those mixed emotions on her face play out in the animation style. They play out in the script. It's such clever writing. Think about all this episode does in 22 minutes. Like, it's crazy really good. Like, it's fantastic. And it does so much. And I think the thing about that sort of the Korra ending, like I say, it's very Empire Strikes Back. The good guy is broken, but I just really love the layers to it and the nuances to it, and I think it's like I say, it's fantastic writing that all that comes across.
Yeah, and I think like it's just the smarts to put Korra in the most difficult position you can put her in this scenario. Having accepted her situation is actually maybe the Avatar isn't the most important thing. To then test that belief by going, well, you're not really the Avatar anymore in that you're currently not physically capable of doing your job, so someone else is picking up that slack. Like, that's tough to watch, like, for her. Like, that's, and while as you point out, it's not as simple as that. There's a lot more going on. That is, like, I still can't imagine choosing a more challenging situation to put Korra in.
And Here's the other element that's so clever. Like, obviously, they shave her head and they give her an arrow, which is synonymous in the world of the show with airbending and airbending masters. But to us, the audience,
yes,
the reason that theme of someone else is taking an Avatar-like role is so unbelievably clear
Yes.
is because she literally looks like the Avatar we know and love.
Yeah, Jinora looks like Aang, which really puts to the audience it's like a little cheat. It makes the audience, vision other avatars. Yeah, absolutely, it does, 100%. So it's really clever. I mean, I was really pleased about that payoff as well because I think we really earned the Jinora situation, across 2 seasons really, and to complement season 2 instead of doing my usual time for Dan's kicking season 2 moment of the week. They really did the groundwork in season 2 for Jinora. Because they did. I mean, the best we talked about this, but the best part of season 2 was the Tenzin off with his family and dealing with his daughter, potentially sort of spiritually surpassing him, and how that felt. And coming to terms with the skill that his daughter clearly has as an airbender, which obviously, in practice and from a distance, should excite him because it's it's good for the Air Nation, a young, very talented airbender, but was hard for him as someone who always seen himself as being the horse dragging the entire Air Nation into existence, on his own. He had to sort of get used to that. But when you do that storyline, and then you combine that with this year, where she took a leadership role with training the new airbenders, and even at one point asked about her tattoos, so we set up that she wanted that. Because it's one thing as well to do this, it's another thing to make sure that we establish the character who actually wants that, because then you want it for them. If that makes sense? Like it's because you could just have not done that scene, and then at the end of the season you'd have gone, oh yeah, I guess that's the thing she wanted. You'd have been like happy enough. But because we did a whole scene or two halfway through this season where Kai brought up, when do you get your tattoos? And she's like, I don't know, Dad's always been reluctant to give me them. And they even have a conversation later in the episode. She's like, why don't I have my tattoos? Doing that, which at the time felt like a perfectly suitable plot for that episode. Little did we know was also setting up the ending of this episode. And I think, it's I know it's we're complimenting obvious, it's just standard good writing things, but I think and now it's time for Dan Kick season 2. After last year, that didn't seem like we were missing stuff like this, just simple logical character A to B's where they want something, they get the thing. And it's such a satisfying way to do it, and it felt really built into this year's plot, and it didn't feel tacked on. It didn't feel like a separate thing that they had to sort of shoehorn into this episode. It felt like a really natural, it felt like a conclusion to both Korra's story and Jinora's story, and that's pretty impressive that they could do that in one breath. Whereas I think in previous seasons it would have been 2 separate scenes closing off 2 separate plots, and they would have felt isolated from each other and not like they thematically linked in any way, shape, or form. But the genius of giving Jinora that and making it about protecting the very tumultuous, world that we've left after this show. After the 3 seasons we've had of the show now, we've got an evil White Lotus running around. We've got instability and chaos in the Earth Kingdom. We've got spirits running around everywhere that no one knows how to control. There's admittedly a lot for season 4 to wrap up, but 12 episodes is a long time, or however many episodes it gets. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to get cracking with season 4, which is a shame because this is what always happens. Well, actually, no, usually I feel like we get to the end of the season and I'm looking forward to doing rewind reviews. But I think that's probably because the last couple of seasons of Korra weren't as good as this one, maybe. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to get started with season 4 of Korra after this, that's for sure.
Yeah, same, for sure. Let's talk about the action, because I was pleased to hear you say, I thought I was being controversial when I said it's on a par with, to me, it's up right up there with the Avatar finale. And then you said, yeah, obviously that fight scene was deliberately evocative. And I was like, oh, maybe I wasn't being controversial. I was actually being not noticing that was deliberate made me a bit silly. I don't know, but those scenes are so epic, and just you really feel not only are they epic, but they're so real. They're so you know the stakes obviously, but you really how often do you see a character get beaten up in a show, or in an animation or a real life drama, or a superhero. With a lot of superhero movies, how often do you see a character getting beaten up and really feel like they're getting beaten up? And fucking hell, do you feel like Korra's taking some hits in this one? Like, it's so, not only is the action epic, but it's so raw, and it's so focused on Korra as a character. I thought it was great. What did you think of the fights, and specifically your thoughts on that sort of on them evoking the finale of Avatar?
Yeah, I think it was it was brutal and very very, yeah, as you said, very raw. You do feel every blow, and they did a really good job power balancing it, because it's just Korra against one airbender, and obviously Zahir is a very extraordinarily talented airbender. He does have the power of flight, but she's got all four elements on her side. She's been training most of her life. He's only recently got airbending. This shouldn't be a close fight, but the tension has come from this poison and how it's affected Korra, right? So they've done very much that thing of they've depowered the hero. They've given her something else to be battling with to make sure that the fight doesn't just end in a second or feel deeply unbelievable. Because if Korra wasn't struggling to fight, the poison, you'd be like, shouldn't she have just wiped the floor with this guy 30 seconds ago? What? Why are they fighting? What's the conflict here? She should just kill him, and it would feel forced that it was not a straightforward fight. Zahir has always been good in this show of retreating, running away. He remembers Zalfu and how he snuck in to kidnap an unconscious Korra, right? The show has been very good at making sure that you understand that, actually, just one-on-one, straight fight, he doesn't have a chance. But that wasn't his vibe. He was always about doing it sneakily, and through tactics, and using the poison to even the playing field is a great story beat, and it works really, really well. And then visually, yeah, I think choosing to put it in a rocky range, very similar to that fight with Aang and the Fire Lord, is great, particularly because the Fire Lord travelled around through the air with fire in the same way, coming out of his hands and feet, and showing Korra sort of using the techniques of the Fire Lord, again, really used the viewer's expectations to its advantage. The same way with Jinora looking a little like Aang, in that outfit and with the shaved hair and the tattoos, to evoke us of her new role as a bringer of balance. We have here, we're using the imagery from Aang fighting the Fire Lord, but we've given Korra the Fire Lord's sort of movement method to evoke the anger, the rage, that almost evil, And when Zahir presented himself as such a peaceful villain most of the season, despite his desire to murder, key figures like the political elite and the Avatar, he's not been one for just all-out war. He's been one for subterfuge. And I think seeing those two, seeing an airbender essentially versus someone using a lot of firebending, but the role reversed in terms of who was the good guy and who was the bad guy, was just really nice imagery and really cool turning of it on its head. And again, to sort of evoke the setting, not the same lighting, because obviously the Avatar finale took place during the comet, so it's had that spooky red night sky or whatever you want to call it, whereas this is broad daylight. Still very, very evocative of it, and I thought it worked really, really well, and they leaned into it so heavily. I was very surprised rewatching it how much it felt like that. And again, as I mentioned earlier, choices of having the camera follow them for a certain amount of time. There was one long shot that followed them through several rocks. The combat continued, and even down to the final blow, everything from it just all animated so beautifully. And I just, that when Korra flings that chain up, the chain that literally represents how he had her captured and chained up just moments ago, using that to wrap it round his leg and then yank him down, and then with the way she lands first, and then the chain follows, and then Zahir smashes down. Come on, that was just great, absolutely great. And again,
so great.
tension throughout because you do feel at any moment that she might be bested. And in the end, she really needed the Airbenders to help to actually win because of the Venom thing. So yeah, perfect combat situation, perfect action sequence, plenty of tension, really well done.
I thought the poison you say about the poison as well. I thought that was really nicely done. It looks metallic, but you don't particularly think. At least when it went in, I wasn't sat there going, "Oh, well, that gives them a way out then," because it can be bent out. At the end, I didn't. I had a sense that she would get out ultimately. But that actual resolution and what that would be was still relatively surprising to me, or at least relatively oh, okay, cool, that makes sense.
Yeah. I really like the sequences early in the episode of her resisting the poison and seeing previous villains as well. I thought that was a really cool idea. We haven't really talked about that. Did that strike you at all? Because I found that really an interesting choice. There was no real need to do that, but showing that almost she's still got demonstrating to us that she's still got some of that trauma from those villains is actually quite interesting, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed that. I thought it worked. In terms of the fight sequences, unless you got anything else to say on that.
Mm-hmm. No.
What did you think? Because obviously, as well as those being epic, all the ones not involving Korra were also amazing. Marco and Bolin. I just loved when they were like, "You go get Korra. We've got this." I was like, "Do you?"
Yeah, these two guys handed your asses to you a week ago. Just sit down.
I'm pretty sure on more than one occasion. These people have specifically beat them up. And when she turns, I can't remember the names, I apologise, but the waterbender, when she turns into the spider water creature, and then the electric shock is how he gets out of that, and when he's I was remembering our last match. Yeah, well, things have changed since then, and then he bends the lava. Good.
The Bolin wink when he says that is so good.
Yeah.
He winks at the camera. It's the best fucking thing I've ever seen. In my notes, I literally just wrote, Bolin's little wink, what a legend.
And you know why that works, right? Because that moment, and I think, the Marvel movies get this wrong. Got this wrong historically as well. The wink then works because the moment at play is a triumphant action beat, and the wink is as well as being funny, it's also a bit of a fuck you to the villain, and it's a bit of a no, look what I can do, and it fits that action tone. The difference between that and I literally put a sock in it is we've had a moment of rest. The villain's been caught, but everyone is beaten and bruised, and it just, that tonally with what's just happened, that joke doesn't work. And I think that's the difference. The actual comedy from Bolin in both those moments, the sock in it and the wink, it's the same type of comedy. It's the sort of Bolin shtick that we're familiar with, but I think it works in the wink moment because of the context and the tone of what it comes after. Whereas, yeah, it's being used, and you could argue, well, it's being used as a moment of levity to break the serious tone of the ending. But I don't think that works as well.
Do you think that part of it as well is one is related to a character thing and one is just arbitrary comedy for comedy's sake? Because I didn't find the sock thing to be too just tonally whiplashing, because I thought that was actually why it was funny for me. I didn't look. It's not a masterpiece, the sock thing. But it was fine. It didn't stick out to me because I thought the contrast was the point, if that makes sense. Especially because Zahir has spent all season yakking away about his politics, and the idea that the show just went, oh, shut up, and put literally put a stop on him after he'd been defeated. I thought that was great, but I think the one thing that might be different between the two moments is the Bolin wink is arguably the conclusion to his character arc for the season. He's not been a particularly confident guy this season. He's been this struggle with metal bending, getting his ass handed to him a couple of times, specifically from Gazan as well, and Minghua. So we have this moment where he can hold his own and he can lava bend now. And he's feeling confident again. He's feeling Bolin again. That wink is arguably the conclusion to that arc, you could say. So it's both a funny moment and a character moment. Whereas the sock in it moment is and again, debatably, if you depending on whether you were bothered by the tonal whiplash, a funny comedy moment, but nothing more. That's more a joke at the expense of Zahir, right? Do you think that might be part of the difference between the two?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say for sure. Yeah, definitely. I think that's I don't have anything more to add almost, but yeah, I think it's good. I think you're right.
Yeah, and I think the episode's also good at putting a bunch of a smattering of gags early in the episode as well. For those who don't recall, there's a sequence, an escape sequence, which I was okay. Cards on the table. There's one little moment in this episode that disappointed me, and it's me and me alone, and I won't use it as a proper criticism of the episode. But I really like that the airbenders sort of get out of their own situation. But that's kind of a little bit undercut by the fact the adults sort of show up afterwards, or right as it ends and do the final blow. I didn't like that. That kind of took that victory away from the captured airbenders that had done it themselves. So there's a brilliant sequence where there's two guards, sort of henchmen, and one's like, ugh, I'm stuck on babysitting duty with these airbenders. I can hold a ball of poison, because last week we'd seen one of those guys holding the bowl of poison. Which really amused me. I thought it was such a good joke. But they do this thing with we need water. And when he comes over, they blow air at him, but they actually sneak the keys away, which releases them. And then there's a whole fight. And it's a brilliant thing as well. There's another great gag snuck in of Bumi and Kaya looking pretty rough. And someone's like, someone get some help for Bumi and Kai. They both need help. And Bumi's like, what are you talking about? I feel great. So they do sneak in, a few gags there. Even though I was slightly frustrated by the arrival of the adults, basically Lin and Suyin.
I didn't mind that. Can I just say, because I think the airbenders kicked enough arse themselves for that point to still have been proven. And the adults were going off to rescue them, and I think the adults made it even more, made the thing of them being like, oh, why aren't we seeing any action even funnier? Because then literally bursting through the door is a group of people to kick their ass. And I for me personally, they did enough to show that they were getting the upper hand even without them coming back.
Would it have been funnier if they'd shown up and been like, we're here to rescue you, and then just trailing off because they could just, the two guards are down and they're just undoing their shackles? Would that not have been funnier and more satisfying to see the airbenders having rescued themselves?
Mate, if you were making the argument that then added even more weight to the ending,
right,
when essentially the airbenders also then go on to save the day. It just didn't bother. Look, I can see where you're coming from. I understand what you're saying, but it didn't bother me personally.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's one of those things where I kind of know it's probably a me thing. That it's such a small moment, and again, I don't want anyone to think it's a criticism. It's not really. It's just another. Just a slight thing that maybe go, that's a shame. A real just a little just this. I would have just slightly done that differently, for my own taste, which isn't a criticism at all. It's just that is literally just a preference thing. Let's see. Do we have? Well, I'm trying to think. Have we covered everything? Oh, did we? I didn't get your thoughts on the two sort of fake out the jettings. So Minghua and Gazan, I think dead, pretty clearly. But do you think they jetted it where they were sort of, it was just vague enough that you could imagine they survived? Neither of them directly dead on screen, or do you think pretty clearly dead?
What pretty? Look, I think it's one of those things where it's kind of. I think they had their cake and could eat it well. Pretty clearly dead. If they don't come back, you're not going, hold on a second.
Right.
What were you going to do there? Say, Glenn and the spoilers, but Glenn and the dump. It's been long enough. Glenn and the dumpster with Walking Dead. Do you know what I mean? Where it's I think we need to see that from another angle, don't we? But there's probably a much better example of that. But okay. John, mild spoilers again. John Cena in Fast X. Plenty of people have been like, that character's dead. I'm like, well, I don't think so. Like, I kind of want to see the body before I think they're dead. These guys, if they don't address them again, I'll be like, oh, well, dead. But equally, if they bring them back, I'll go, yeah, okay, I buy it.
Yeah,
fine. They survived somehow. They did some sort of bending that stopped it. She created a shitload of water, and it all went underground, or the way the rocks fell, like they fell in such an order that they survived a bit. Like, yeah, fine.
Yeah, because I mean, I will say so. Kazan sort of Green Goblins himself. Like it's he sort of like he's trying to take down the hero and ends up taking himself down. Like he's bringing the whole tower down. It's like if I can't win, we're all going down, right? I'm bringing this whole tower down, and it's Mako and Bolin escape, but he brings the tower down. So that's very much like no one murders him. I would argue if the show wants us to believe Minghua's dead, then Mako did that. Like, he shot lightning at her. Now, admittedly, she was very much threatening his life, but that's a very bold move for the show, I think. And I stand by this. Like, I'm going to tell you now, I'm pretty sure they're dead, right? I don't think they're alive. I don't think either of these characters are alive, which will not shock you to hear that I don't believe they turn up again. But you're right, they left it vague enough that if they wanted to bring them back, or if they just wanted to have enough culpability so Nickelodeon didn't go, hey, take those scenes out, they're too violent. Which, by the way, if Nickelodeon were going to say that, they would have said that at least twice earlier this season that they didn't. So maybe that's something they shouldn't have worried about. There were two much more brutal deaths this year, in my opinion. But, her sort of lifeless body floating up against the water after being hit directly by Mako's lightning. The implication of that is pretty brutal, no? That Mako just killed her outright, that he went lethal with because he must have known lightning would, if lightning hits a lady that's like surrounded by 1,000 octopus arms of water, that ain't going well for her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to bring it up because, to be fair, like, and I don't know if this was the aim, or I'm just a moron, and I'm willing to accept that either could be true. I sort of view it as a defensive. He used lightning, but the water conducted it into, do you know what I mean? I didn't view it as brutal as, like, I viewed it almost as defensive, but because of the circumstances. Yeah. I mean, let's not forget as well, she is trying to kill him. He is ultimately acting in defense, yes. You know what I mean, of any kind here. But, I guess I just didn't... Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, in fact, he doesn't even, by the looks of it, he doesn't even fire it. It is kind of... It's even worse, because it's what both of us are saying. He doesn't seem to fire it directly at her. He aims at the water.
Yes.
So it is what I'm suggesting, but with pure intent.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because I just feel like we haven't really seen the heroes in these shows deliberately go lethal, to my knowledge, to my memory at least, and I just don't see how that wasn't anything else. Like, that was very cold and very calculated. Like, it felt like a really deliberate, like, I had to end this. And I was surprised rewatching it how much they were just like, yeah, Mako just killed her, he's just a murderer now. Like, I was
no, it's still for me is if they go, oh no, he just knocked her out. Like, she's
absolutely
made of water. She can handle it. I'll go, all right, fine.
Yeah. She's in prison. She's in the next cell to Zahir. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely possible, 100%. 100%. But it just, it surprised me that that they framed it that way. I was, and it's funny because obviously this is not the first time I'm seeing this series. I think this is probably the third or fourth time I'm seeing this series, and I was pretty surprised, truthfully, at how that played out. Not complaining, but just. Interesting.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So let's see. The Air Nation defending themselves and saving Korra at the end of the episode. I didn't talk about this, but the music in this episode is fucking incredible. Like, it's a new arrangement of that classic Avatar theme. So it has echoes of the original Last Airbender music as the Airbenders come together. It's just epic in every way, shape or form. I absolutely loved it. So I always forget the name of the guy that composes the music for the show. Jeremy Zuckerman, series composer. He's brilliant, and I just, a belated but very worthy bow in his direction for the music of this show in general. It's great. It's really good. And we don't compliment it enough.
Agreed.
Because I think sometimes good music just sort of slips under the radar. Because if it's doing its job, it's making you feel all the feels without you realizing it's doing it. Whether that be suspense in an action scene or sadness in a scene of heartbreak, But yeah, I loved that. And I also really liked the choice to not use music when Asami comforts Korra at the end of the episode. Like, the absence of music is almost its own choice. And apparently, this was in the trivia, so I'm doing a bit of trivia a little early, but apparently it was his choice. He wanted there to not be music during that scene of comfort. He called it the heavy... He wanted, in order to reflect on the heavy quiet of the tragedy and violence that Korra went through. So I thought that was a really interesting and very deliberate choice to not do music there. And I know that I could make a little joke here. I didn't want to do work that day. Oh, I think this scene needs heavy quiet, says the composer of the series. But I genuinely think that was like a really smart choice. Like, he, I don't think he wanted an early lunch. I think he made a really, really good choice for that scene. And I was curious, actually, because we hadn't really talked about it, and you talked a lot in the past about Korra and Asami's sort of slow burn friendship, that this relationship that's developed between them across the last 3 seasons. And I think it being Asami comforting Korra rather than Mako or Bolin or Tenzin
or her dad.
I think
her dad is the one that has been set up for that in the
Right.
last few episodes. Especially as like he literally the last scene with her in is literally him holding her and going, "I'm never letting you go," and then pop, over to Asami. No, I'm joking, obviously, but I loved it being Asami. I was like, oh, brilliant, and they've just got really great chemistry, and I hope their relationship is explored more for sure. And I hope Asami's a big part of Korra's healing journey. I thought, everything from the handhold to knowing that she could say it's for Giovanni.
Ginora?
That's not her name.
Giovanna?
Ginora, thank you. For Ginora. I gave it a go. This is why I don't give it a go, people. This is why I don't just attempt it. This is why I don't attempt it anyway.
If you don't think I'm not putting Giovanna at the top of my notes so that forevermore that character shall be referred to as such. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Hashtag justice.
I'm sorry, you can't. We can't just go back to a serious conversation after Giovanna.
You have this is how you have her fit into the series. You have her kick some ass and do some shocking, and you have her be Korra's support animal. Look
at Chris just powering on in the wake of Giovanna. Mate, you are a consummate professional, mate.
Thank you.
I'm never gonna live. You're never gonna live that down, mate.
Oh, I'm alright with it. Like I keep saying, this is why I don't. If anyone's thinking, oh, the comic relief brother, why don't you just give it a go? This is why.
Yeah. Because you just call it like Mario and Bert or something like that, wouldn't you? Oh man, right. Let's see. Let me just. I don't know if I can have a serious conversation about anything now. Yeah. All right. Right. There you go. What did you? Did you have any thoughts on how they resolved the? Because this is just in my notes, and we sort of brushed past the subject without talking about the specific moment. The solution to the poison being that it was a metal-based poison, and therefore Su-Yin could just bend it out.
Yeah, no, I mentioned that. I think we then naturally went on to talk about something else.
Oh, okay.
I loved that. I thought it was set up. I thought it was surprising. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was set up very well. And also, we had Giovanni see it earlier on in the episode, so it makes sense that she would be the one to tell her. I thought all that worked really well, actually, for me.
Yeah, I agree. And the only thing I did have a slight so Korra, just visually, I mean, and I guess this was just maybe cheaper or quicker or whatever, I don't know. But like, and if that's the case, then absolutely fine, because obviously the money was spent where the money needed to be spent this episode. Just animation wise, though, when she was poisoned, they put the poison on her skin, and her skin sort of absorbed it, you presume, into her bloodstream, because that's how poisoning would work. Because then that gets it around your whole body, because your bloodstream is doing that then. It's doing the poison's work for it, you know? But when the poison's removed, it comes out of her mouth. And I was like, it wasn't in her stomach. So I was a bit like...
No,
what?
But I think we see... I can't remember the character's name. I'm certainly not going to attempt it. But we see her work it. I think they do enough to show us her working it through her body. And the whole thing is her body's... The poison has gone through her body so much. That's why it's a threat. I think he literally says something like her body's taken on too much. It's been in her body for too long. And she sort of bends it out of her legs. She bends it out through her whole body, really. So I think I would agree with you if it was instant, if she just sort of waved her hand and it just shot out of her stomach. But actually, I think they really go to lengths to show it being bent out of her.
But does that mean she moved it out of Korra's bloodstream into Korra's stomach and then removed it through the mouth, rather than pulling it out through the skin? Is that what we're implying then? Is what was happening?
I don't know, Dan. I guess this is me learning that not every part of your body is connected through your mouth. You know?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. I just found that strange, because it was just like, if you can move it through the different, if you can move it out of the bloodstream and the blood vessels into the stomach, couldn't you just moved it straight out of the body? Like, I don't know. It seems look. Look, we're talking about made-up magic bending powers here. So with a metal poison.
Yeah, I think
so. It's all speculative, but like it just seemed odd to me.
But I think you can treat everything orally, so there's a degree of that. But two,
because once it goes into your stomach and gets absorbed, it then goes into it can get into your bloodstream that way from your stomach, because
same principle. It can come out through the bloodstream.
Because when it goes through your intestines, all that stuff is absorbed and then gets into your bloodstream that way. I don't think your body can reverse that. I don't think that works the other way. I don't think that's possible.
Well, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't in reality. But like you just, we're talking about. She's a bender. Like that's what that's about. But I think she also. I think it's more of a thing if she saw it. She didn't see it. She just hears that she's got poison and it's metallic, and she's bending it in such a way that she throws it up. Like, do you know what I mean? She's not seen it. I think your point on we see it get absorbed that way is more valid if the character that's bending it out of her witnessed that. But they didn't. So she's making her throw up, which is sort of what you do if someone's poisoned.
No, but only if they've ingested the poison. Like, you wouldn't make someone throw up if they'd been injected poison.
Yeah, but again, she hasn't seen how Korra's ingested this.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it wouldn't work. Like, if I injected you with poison, and then a different person came along that didn't know that's how I'd done it, and went, oh, he's been poisoned, and, like, made you vomit, you would still then die of poison, because vomiting wouldn't get the poison out, because the poison isn't in your stomach, it's in your bloodstream.
Not if the person that was treating me had the ability to bend the poison anywhere at will.
But that's my question mark, is I don't understand how you'd be able to bend it. If you can bend it from organ to organ, like into her stomach, then you might as well just pull it out. But yeah, it doesn't. Look again. It's just a thing that struck me as odd. But again, I suspect, if I'm being honest, it was cheaper than showing her sweat out like metal. Essentially, that's my assumption as to what happened there. Just visually, it was cheaper, but it did catch my eye as like interesting choice. I don't think I got your thoughts on something I mentioned earlier, and I was curious about whether you had the same thought. Do you think putting the Avatar into the Avatar state was actually a really dumb plan? just in general.
Like, I get the logic. Like, that's how you end it. But yeah, like, not probably four chains isn't enough.
6 next time, you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you do 6, you're fine.
Yeah.
I don't think for that scenario you could ever have enough chains.
He keeps going. The thing is, they got suspicious of him at B&Q, and they wouldn't sell him more than 4 at once. They were just like, "Mate, we don't know what you're up to with this. This seems weird. So we're going to limit you to 4." He's like, "But I need at least 12." They're like, "We're sorry. Yeah, we can't do that." He's like, "All right, fine." He had plans to maybe go back on a separate trip with a fake mustache, and and get more, but he didn't have time. He ran out of time.
Going to another shop on the high street, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and they're like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Giovanni."
It's gonna be easier in this world when Amazon exists, which, based on the current progression, is probably only a few episodes away.
That's true. That's very true. So yeah. Another point that I sort of touched about that I don't think I got your thoughts on at all, Chris, was I thought he sort of, his logic kind of like deliberately made his villainy plan seem, his villainy goals worse this episode, because I think they've really toted an interesting line with him where he's that villain that's somewhat right about what he's saying. The Earth Queen was corrupt. There are many problems in this world. Plunging it into a dark age of chaos where it's every man for himself is not the answer. But the observation was correct. Whereas this episode, this band of brothers and sisters in anarchy are witnessing the beginning of an era of true freedom. He's giving this whole speech and he's talking about chaos and every man for himself and no borders or nations. A return to the natural order. Did you feel like they made his argument like weaker by doing that and making it seem even sillier than they had done previously, sort of on purpose, or do you think that's just me in my head?
Maybe, but I think for him to become full-on comic book villain at this stage, it's fine. Like, it didn't undercut anything for me, because as you said earlier, if Korra had joined him, this wouldn't have happened, and they did a good enough job at making that clear. So
yeah, and I think as well, like it doesn't contradict anything he previously said. It's just like, oh, he's taking it even further than he previously hinted. And now it's silly. Like now he's just like clear mustache twirly villain, but not in a way that changed his character. It's not like it's not like he'd been really like, aligned one way previously, and now they've U-turned him into a different thought pattern. It's an extension of what he was already saying. So I think that's why they get away with it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think then that might be all of my notes.
Well, in that case, Dan,
let's triv it up. I'm gonna give you some trivia. So, Zahir's line, "We lucky few, this band of brothers and sisters of anarchy," apparently is a Shakespeare allusion, I should say, not illusion. I don't know how well I enunciated there. But yeah, "We happy few, we band of brothers" is from the St. Christmas Day speech from Henry V.
Do you not know that?
Did I not know that?
Yeah, no, you sounded so... I don't know, I just thought that was sort of I don't know. Maybe I'm being. I don't know. Maybe I'm more familiar with Shakespeare, but I'd put that.
I would argue. I would argue you're definitely more familiar with Shakespeare than me. Yeah, that's definitely a.
Yeah, but I would put that sort of. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well. I would. I just would put that with that as a quote, especially because obviously it led to Band of Brothers, like that, as in inspired the title for that. So I just didn't. I was surprised you didn't know that was a Shakespeare thing. Not judging, but just
I think it's one of surprise. I think sometimes something gets reworked and worked in so many different places. You don't know if it's just an overall saying or if it's something from a specific thing.
Yes, and there's a shitload of like Shakespeare things like that, where like the phrase actually like comes from Shakespeare, and people just it's not as known.
Yeah, and like you might assume, Shakespeare used that phrase because it was already a common phrase, but then you go, oh no, Shakespeare started it. That's not the first time that's happened to me, but but also in general, I'm not as familiar with Shakespeare in general.
So I've found a list. So you ready? And some of these, I'll just run through them quickly, because it's quite interesting. So all of these are Shakespeare things. Neither rhyme nor reason. Too much of a good thing. Wow. Cruel to be kind.
Right.
Own flesh and blood. Like, it's just crazy.
If in this episode Zahir had said, you've got to be cruel to be kind, I would not have gone like Shakespeare reference. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't have occurred to me.
And as much as I was like, really, you didn't know that? Let me tell you, Dan, neither would I.
Yeah,
I would be going, fucking hell. They're nicking from Shakespeare all over the place.
Yeah.
Brave New World,
whereas if at the end Zahir had hit the ground and gone, a horse, my kingdom for a horse, I'd have been like, Shakespeare. I know that one.
Or if they'd have captured it, it'd have gone, to be or not to be.
yeah. Give me the big obvious ones, and then I'll pick up on the Shakespeare references.
Two, three. Oh wow, these last four on this list. All right, let me just quickly. Wild Goose Chase, Break the Ice, Brave New World, and Melted into Thin Air. Like all have attributed Shakespeare plays.
And it really wouldn't surprise me if at some point in this season someone told me that that Zahir had referred to his New World Order as a Brave New World.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's the downside to being as prolific as Shakespeare was, I guess. Sometimes your shit becomes so ubiquitous, no one knows it was yours.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate for Shakespeare, for good old Willie S. Right. Oh yeah, we talked about this already, but obviously Korra's battle with Zahir recalls several elements from the Battle of Wulong Forest, which is the battle between Aang and the Fire Lord, such as the fact both conflicts occurred in the Earth Kingdom in a field of rock columns, portions of which were used in offensive maneuvers. Additionally, both combatants in each fight were capable of flying by using airbending or firebending, but in reverse in this case. Aang flew sort of via airbending. In the Avatar state, he had the big air bubble that went around him that brought him up. Not as clean as Zahir's version of flight, or as maneuverable, but definitely a thing. This is an interesting one, and I kind of chuckled when I read this because I didn't really know how to feel about this one. So apparently, the theme "Service and Sacrifice" that plays during Jinora's anointment ceremony uses elements of the theme "Jinora's Light," which played during the finale of the previous season when Jinora came down and saved Korra from Unavati when she gave her the extra power, when she was like Avatar harder. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah. So the music cue that they used when Jinora saved the day last season, elements of it worked into the music cue from when Jinora's anointed as an airbending master. Perfect. But apparently, composer Zuckerman, it just has his second name here. I've lost his first name because it was in a different note that I've since removed. But he apparently was not initially aware of the connection between the two themes while composing it. So he'd done it subconsciously.
What?
He'd done it by accident.
Oh, right. Okay.
That is incredible to think he was on such a level. He just instinctively knew what notes worked for Jinora and went with them. Very impressive, in my opinion. To be that
agreed.
keyed
Absolutely.
in, to be that keyed in into what the musical elements of a character's theme is that you just work it into another song related to a scene of them without knowing you've done it. So yeah,
that's very good.
So it's time, Chris, and I know we've all been waiting for it. You know, we promised it for. I mean, you promised it several episodes ago, but we're you know, it's the finale, and you sort of hinted that maybe we do it for the finale, and you know, I trusted you, and I believed you, and I don't doubt you've done it. That you've composed and written an entire song to finally go, a pre-written song, to be the feedback from last/this series, or as it's been referred to this series as, give me that feedback. So I know that you'll have done that, because you wouldn't want to let our listeners down, particularly our Patreon listeners who are hearing this a week early. You know, they really want to get the world exclusive on something this big. You know,
I imagine some people have paid to become Patreon members just to hear that.
Yeah, because at the end of the previous episode, we will have said you can hear it right now if you go over to the Patreon. 100% we'll have said that, because we're not idiots, so we know how to market.
And is that also the episode where we discovered that I was still a Patreon and that I then cancelled my subscription whilst doing it?
Yes, I can't remember if that was in an MBS or a Korra, but yeah, that happened. We recently discovered that. So when we set it up years ago, we tested it by Chris. Like, we weren't really sure how it worked. So Chris sort of signed up for like a you know, $1 or something, $2, and it was like he was going to do that and then immediately cancel it. It was worked out to about £1 in GBP, and then just forgot. And it's been running ever since. And he's paid a lot of money into over a period of time. Yeah, I don't know if that was last week.
It was quite good, actually, because it is a cost of living crisis, and I cancelled that, and then I cancelled another Patreon, and then I just sort of was on a bit of a ball, and I cancelled another subscription. So actually, that saved me £8 a month. That exercise, it just made me go, you know what? I don't need all these subscriptions.
No one needs all those subscriptions. I've got subscriptions.
I kept ITVX though, you know.
Yeah, I don't have that one. I tell you the one that I'm like, you'll pry it from my cold dead hands, and everyone always laughs at me when I say this, but it's YouTube Premium. I honestly, I'll give up.
Mate.
I'll give up everything before I give up YouTube Premium. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
And I've been a big advert. I was YouTube Premium, I think, for like a good.
You were YouTube Premium for way longer than I was. Way before I was, for sure. And you were singing his praises, and I think I was like slightly rolling my eyes at you. And I have to say now, Chris, I was wrong.
Well, have you like, because you've been using like another computer, or you've used Nadia's phone or something? Have you experienced regular YouTube since being a YouTube? This podcast isn't sponsored, but like since when I use regular YouTube now, I'm like, oh come on,
yeah, it's painful every time. I'm like, geez, ads, because I just think I honestly, that subscription, the amount of my week I get back. In time from YouTube ads it's embarrassing, right? And I guess that just tells you I watch a lot of YouTube, right? And a lot of video essays and a lot of like gaming content. I'm a big fan of a mobile game called Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, so my YouTube algorithm is just filled with. It's always funny because I used to have a separate YouTube account for myself and then an MBS one to upload stuff, but in the end I got so sick of going back and forth. I just put YouTube Premium on the MBS one and just use that as my own YouTube account as well as uploading it. So what's really funny is if you look at who we're subscribed to, who MBS is subscribed to, there's all these like Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle YouTubers that we're subscribed to, and that's why. But also like if Chris ever logs into the MBS YouTube going forward, if I if I got like injured or something and I wasn't able to upload the episode, and I said to Chris, if you just go into YouTube you can do it, it'll only take a minute, this is how you do it, Chris would go in and just see the algorithm. What YouTube feeds me now is just Dokkan Battle content constantly. You'd be like, what are all these videos?
By this is how you do it, just to clarify, Dan means here's the login, as opposed to him needing to teach me how to upload a YouTube.
Oh, yeah. This is the login. This is how you'd get in. Yeah, sorry, I should clarify that. Yeah. Obviously, Chris knows how to upload a video. Although I'd probably have to send you the tags and the thumbnail, yes, and it'd be a whole process. But yeah, anyway, Karen.
It would be a whole thing, yeah. But one of the reasons you use YouTube more, though, as well, because same as me, is because with YouTube Premium, you can use YouTube like you can treat YouTube videos like podcasts, because you can lock your phone and but that you can download, you can lock your phone, so you can literally treat it as an audio streaming platform as well.
Yeah,
which is because my YouTube use is huge, but partly because of those features with YouTube Premium.
So when someone like H Bomber Guy releases a 4.5-hour video, I don't have to watch every minute of it. I could listen to some of it almost like a podcast. Not every, So it's honestly, I the amount of time that saves me, I could not tell you. And it also means I get to support like other stuff that I like with more, because like the YouTubers I do watch get more from my view than the standard view. So I get to support in some way. So like I have a Nebula subscription.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I have a Nebula subscription, but if the video I want to watch is also on YouTube from that creator, I'll watch the YouTube version, because they already have my Nebula money. They need my view on YouTube. So like with Jetlag the game, if I don't watch the episode when it comes out on Nebula, I'll watch the YouTube version, because I know they get extra.
I had no idea that they get extra revenue by a YouTube Premium member watching their shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that until I went into our sort of breakdowns of what of the pennies that we make on ours, and it did say like YouTube Premium revenue separate, and it was more.
Well, it does make sense in a way, because they would have to do something to address the if we watch a video, we're not seeing the ad. So I have wondered before. I wonder how ad revenue works if YouTube, but it's nice to know that it goes the more positive way, because to be fair, that makes sense. Like reward the people that are potentially keeping
people subscribe to premium
members subscribe to YouTube Premium. Like
Yeah, agreed. Anyway, that is the subscription I wouldn't get rid of. And we are not sponsored anyway by YouTube. I think YouTube is a deeply broken platform with lots of stupid rules and too much machine monitoring of the system. And I know that that's like the conclusion they've had to come to, because there's just so much content on YouTube. You physically can't do it any other way. I know how we got here, but they need to think of a better way, because it's very broken. Like, stupid broken. As we found out this season to our cost, because they recently changed the algorithm and now it's like flagging every single one of our episodes and demonetizing us. So yay! But anyway, I think we've managed to get 3 of the 13 episodes without a flag now, which is poor.
Wait. Oh dear.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, but it's time for feedback from the series, Chris, and you did a lot of you've done a lot of prep, a lot of work, so it's time to hear the intro song. So give us the song.
Yes. Give me the feedback, and here's my song. You're thinking, when did you write that? When Dan did his intro. 'Cause I forgot until we started recording. Oh no, oh no, oh no. So give me the feedback, here we go. Dan's got some feedback and I wanna know. Dan, won't you say yay? Oh, give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Those are the actual lyrics. Drift Away is a song by Mentor Williams, written in 1970 and originally recorded by John Henry Kurtz on his 1972 album Reunion. Give me the feedback, Dan, won't you say yeah?
I think the non-sarcastic slow clap.
Thank you.
That's very good.
You know what? Good. I didn't realise, because I genuinely wrote it as you were doing the intro, which is why at one point I think you legit just ask, you pause in kind of a Chris will jump in here way, and I just don't, because I'm trying to write a song. But here's a fun fact, Dan. I didn't realise until I sang it out loud, which is the first time I've done that, how little of it actually rhymed.
Yes.
So, my bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought you knew. I thought that was part of it. So I'm a little disappointed to discover that you didn't deliberately do that. But sure.
Well, it was for the paragraph about the song and the original lyrics, which I just copied and pasted like that. I very much knew then. Yeah.
But yeah, feedback. It's time to hit some feedback. Now, we had an interesting one, Chris. So if you remember a while back, a listener on this very segment asked us about how we'd feel about bone bending, and then gave the sort of science of how bones are actually made of earth, essentially, and materials that you'd find in the earth, and therefore an earthbender could theoretically bone bend. Theoretically. And I said it's a bit grim for the shows, although, you know, after this season, don't feel like anything's off the cards. But I did comment on how I'd recently read the first Kyoshi book, and it included some pretty violent uses of bending, because the book is a YA novel, and it's sort of aimed at an older audience than the original series of Avatar. Maybe a similar audience to the Korra audience, but the Korra show has to find a balance in case the younger audience also stumble across that. But the book is very much aimed at like teens and up. So the book's pretty brutal, and I mentioned that and said you might get bone bending or something like that. So a listener called LaserNatu8564 said, it's funny you should mention bone bending might be in a Kyoshi book, since the author of these novels, F.C. Yee, actually asked Mike DiMartino if certain characters could develop that as a subset of earthbending. Mike said it shouldn't be a thing since it's too similar to bloodbending. Now, they then added that the Avatar Wiki has a link to an interview that tells the story, you know, where he tells that story. So I found that interview and listened to that clip, and it's really funny. He does exactly that. He says, Michael Dante DiMartino, is that his full name? I always thought it was Michael DiMartino. But anyway, yeah, he says he asked if it was possible for a cruel earthbender to bend bones with the human body, and apparently the response was that, you know, it could detract from the uniqueness of bloodbending, but also he then added, and what the hell is wrong with you? Like as a joke, obviously, not like a legit criticism. And it's a really funny story that FCE tells. And if you do want to hear the interview, I forgot how long into the interview. It's an hour-long interview, but it's a really interesting interview as well. Anyway, there's a lady on there that wrote on. It's like a panel, and one of the people on it. It's like it's a Zoom call that was live streamed through Facebook, but it's publicly accessible. And one of the other people on it is like a writer that worked on the Clone Wars, and she's really interesting as well. I've forgotten her name, apologies, but so it's a really good little interview anyway. But yeah, he told that story, and I just thought it was really funny. And what a coincidence that when I heard bone bending, I thought the Kyoshi books, and the writer of the Kyoshi books did the same. So,
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, what are the odds that was yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great listener feedback. Thank you very much.
Well, we do have technically one other one, but it's not from a listener. It's from someone who has disdain for this podcast, and it is technically from Nadia. So a couple episodes ago, Nadia was complaining.
Whoa! Why does she have such disdain for this podcast?
Well, I think a few reasons. One, the imposition on her life, generally speaking, from all of our podcasts. But two, particularly that's true today because she's had to sit quietly 3 meters behind me and watch TikToks and read a book while we've done this. And she's done so with grace and poise. Because she's an absolute hero.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, we're actually currently in it. I'm coming from a caravan in beautiful Victoria, Australia. Well, Melbourne, Australia, but you know, and it's it's lovely. But it's we're only here for a couple of weeks, but it's lined up with a very early morning podcast where there was nowhere really Nadia. Because normally Nadia would just go and do something when we recorded and leave me the space. But she couldn't do that, and she's very graciously just sat and had to put her headphones in and put up with me yakking for the last hour and a half. So, you know, not all heroes wear capes. So with that in mind, I think it's fair for me to say that disdain is reasonable.
Yeah.
Absolutely fair. But she didn't like Zahir. She thought he was a boring character. And she posited to me the question, what if Zahir was funny? What would he have done? And my answer was, when he learned how to fly, he'd have started doing, like, coming down an escalator, going up in a lift. You know that? Like, they're just...
Yeah.
Look what I can do. You know, that's that old trick, pretending there's a staircase.
Yeah.
A bit of mime work, a bit of space work. But Nadia wanted to know what you think Zahir would have done if he'd been funny.
What's the name of the firebender from his gang?
Ghazan.
Ghazan. Every time Ghazan would have lit anything, he would have just blown it out.
That's a good answer.
So like, he goes to do a big menacing thing. He takes out a load of lava, just ash, just ash. And then every time the waterbender is,
Minghua.
Yeah, just getting. I don't know why I'm asking the name. I'm not then saying them. She's just getting a load of water splashed in her face every time she produces those arms. He just makes them fly up and slap her in the face. She's covered in water,
and then makes like yuck sounds. He's like wah wah wah, and then runs away.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good answer.
And she goes to argue with him, and he's like, "Sorry, what did you say?" And then he just keeps making the water in the face. What did you say you were thirsty?
So you've made him like a full-on. You've made him a prankster, is what you've done.
Yeah, like a sort of Big Brother prankster.
Yeah, character. I like it. And he'd say things like, "Oh, why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?"
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Right, that's a good answer. We've made it to the end. I just want to thank everyone for listening. I think if do we do overall thoughts? Really good season, top tier. Really enjoyed it.
Great season. Great season.
Yeah, I don't really have much criticism of this season. It's been pretty perfect. Obviously, season 4 has a lot to wrap up, but we'll cover that when we cover it. Which, by the way, I do have the dates. Ready this time for the first time ever. I think in the history of analysing Avatar, I've actually been prepared for that. The current schedule has us returning on the 27th of August.
There you go.
Which seems like a million miles away because we're recording this in January, but actually listeners are hearing this in May, 7th of May. Yeah, May. So, it's not that far. Sort of 13, 14 weeks away. So yeah, 20. I suppose if you're on Patreon, 20th of August, week earlier than that. So, but yeah, so
we got in between. We got a really fun season of Rewind reviews planned. We're doing exclusively sequels to movies we've done before. We're kicking off with Toy Story 2. Could get weird. There's a lot of talk of Jingle All the Way too.
What? There's a lot of talk from Chris of Jingle All the Way too.
Yeah,
that's coming from one person.
But I started doing the maths though, and I was like, because Toy Story 2 was your choice, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And I was like, if Star Wars. And we're doing the prequel trilogy as well. And I was like, if Star Wars goes like the way that 2 of those choices are mine, I've only got like, I think have I got 6 this year or 5 choices? But you know what I mean? I was like,
I think we've both got 4. If you're including my Toy Story one. If you're not including Toy Story, I've got 3 more choices to make. You've got 4 more choices to make.
Right, okay. So that's what I mean. Like, I was like, do I want to waste one of like only 4 choices on Jingle All the Way too? So I'm unsure, but I might.
Yeah, I think that's the way the season works. People have asked us before, why 11 episodes? Because if we do a trilogy, then we both get 4 other choices. That's why 11. If we did an even number of episodes, if we did 10, then doing a trilogy means one of us loses an option. Whereas the way it works out now, we always get, no matter who has to sacrifice the choice, because one of us will lose 2, one of us will lose 1 on the trilogy, but the way that works out, it doesn't matter because one of us was always getting 1 extra episode anyway, because it's 11, not 10.
Yeah, but do we make a conscious effort then to align the person who's getting the extra with the But I don't know if we've ever consciously done
mathematically
that.
though, mathematically that's always what's going to happen though. It doesn't matter if we choose to do that or not, because it's always, no matter who does it, there's still always going to be 8 episodes left split.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. So it literally doesn't matter. Well, we've never needed to line it up that way. The other benefit of doing 11 episodes, it means that someone else each season gets to choose the opening and finale. Whereas if we'd done 10 episode seasons of Rewind Reviews, then it would always... Yeah, we worked it all out really early, and I was very pleased we came to that format. It's worked brilliantly. I've been very pleased. But yeah, we are covering the Star Wars prequel trilogy as the build up to our 100th episode of Rewind Reviews, and then we have a bonus 100th episode sort of... So there's the 100th episode, which will probably be which will be Revenge of the Sith, and then we'll have a little bonus episode, imagine it as episode 100B. That's going to be quite fun. That we won't talk about now, but I'm excited to do it. I think that'll be a really fun episode. So not a traditional review, something a bit different. But yeah, I've only got 3 choices left to make from the pile of movies that we've already covered. Chris has 4, so yeah, let's see what happens, because I've already used one on Toy Story 2, which was the right move. I'm very excited to cover that. From our perspective, we're actually recording that this week, so I'm very excited.
Oh shit! Yeah, I need to watch Toy Story 2.
Yeah, well, Nadia and I are quite lucky because the day we're recording that podcast lands on Australia Day, which is a big holiday over here, and from what I understand, a controversial one. And I'm not going to get into the stuff with the First Nations, but it's mixed feelings on Australia Day in Australia. But a lot of things are closed, so it's like I wouldn't have been able to do much that day anyway. So I'm just going to watch Toy Story in the morning and then record with you in the afternoon. You've got a slightly trickier one because for you it's a morning recording, so you've got to figure out watching it the night before.
Yeah, and I'm out. I'm doing a play at the moment. I'll work it out. I'll get it watched. But yeah, I just completely. I thought that was me going. Oh, the other day I thought when I was thinking about my week, I thought, oh shit, I got to watch Toy Story 2 at some point, and I just hadn't. Oh, it's fine. I can watch it. Wednesday night. I think that's fine. Yes. No. Even though it was your choice, I think as I said at the time, I think if I'd have had the first choice for the sequel series, I probably would have made the same choice. So yeah, it's good stuff. I'm excited.
Yep. And if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or any of the places that are sort of publicly available, guess what? If you go subscribe to our Patreon right now, you can hear us discuss Toy Story 2 today on Rewind Reviews, because we put episodes of Rewind Reviews and Analysing Avatar up a week early on our Patreon. It also gives you access to our Discord, where you can ask questions and give feedback, which is one of the sources of our Give Me That Feedback section. But of course, if you'd like to leave feedback, the other way to do that is to find the YouTube video that is the YouTube version of this podcast, where there's a comment section. You can stick your thoughts underneath. That's another place that I pull from for that section. So if you've got any thoughts on anything we've talked about this season, disagree with anything we've said, or have anything you'd like to sort of add or expand on any of the points, please feel free to do so. It actually supports the show, as well as gives us an interesting discussion point for next season. And as always, what we constantly discover is that our listeners are smarter than we are. So continue to prove that by correcting us, observing things, giving us your thoughts. We like that.
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah. Also, of course, getting on the Patreon gives you access to our other podcast, which we're actually behind on. We need to sort that out. Which is Nothing But Lyrics. We need to do January's episode, which we haven't recorded yet, and I've just realised it's getting quite close to the end of January, so we've got to suss that out. But anyway, we can sneak that in at some point, I'm sure, because it'll only be a 30-ish minute recording. But anyway, it's a really fun podcast where we take the lyrics of a song and make fun of them, basically, or try to work out what they mean. We've done a bunch of great songs and a bunch of bad songs. We've pondered the anger of 30-year-old child Fred Durst to break stuff. And we had a safe sex message from the Spice Girls. So it's been a wild podcast. It's varied in content, but people should check it out. It's really fun. That's on our Patreon. That's exclusive for our Patreons.
Because was the alien?
It's as little as $1 a month to join. Of course, you can get it in all the usual places. So it's mail at nothingbutstatic.co.uk if you want to email us. Nothingbutstatic.co.uk takes us to our main podcast, Nothing But Static, where you can also get that on iTunes and Spotify and stuff. It's where we review various TV things that are happening, and do TV news. And of course, you can support us in a number of simpler ways by liking or engaging with the podcast or any of our podcasts on any of those platforms. Comments, likes, reviews, all that stuff helps. You could tell a friend, or you could just keep listening. All those things do support what we do. And if you don't like us, you could badmouth us around town. That's fine. If you're not enjoying this, you could just go tell a friend that you hated it. That's cool. Do that. Or
that's fine.
Give us a bad review on iTunes.
Just because listeners would have heard me trying to say that, and just to finish this thought, was Alien Ant Farm before Wintering then? Because in my head, Alien Ant Farm was after Wintering.
No, it was before.
And therefore we had a January episode because Wintering was like the Christmas one, but obviously not.
No, because you were annoyed that we hadn't worked out that way. We did. Wintering ended up being the November episode.
Oh, because my choice wasn't right. Okay, fine.
No, because then there was Alien Ant Farm. Because then we did Until the Day I Die, didn't we? That was the most recent one, Story of the Year.
Yeah, so was that not January? I could have sworn we recorded that. I thought that was January.
No, that went up in December.
Oh shit!
Which means Wintering. Wintering was actually October.
Yeah, that's crazy. Why didn't I save that for December then? I guess I just didn't. I guess maybe because we record so far in advance, I didn't just think of it like that.
We record. We don't record. We don't always record them. As people listening to this in May, will be like, "What? It's January things." Like for us, it's January. Sorry, everyone. So, yeah. We're further ahead than we've ever been. I think we're like 15, 16 weeks ahead, which is good for us. Because it gives us leeway. But anyway, that's everything for this week, guys. Obviously go support Raphodraws, RAPHODRAWS, who's on Instagram.com/Raphodraws, or Tumblr and Twitter and YouTube, or launchlinks.io/u/Raphodraws. They're an artist that did the brilliant piece of art we use as the key art for this podcast, and they are very good and should be supported. They have a Redbubble account where you can buy like things with their art on it. It's not just Avatar stuff. They do a bunch of really good stuff, and they should be supported. So go support them in any way that you can. So that is everything for this series on Korra. Very exciting, and we'll conclude it there. So I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham,
and we'll see you in August when we sit down to review After All These Years.